What's up everyone, welcome once again to the channel. It's your boy Luis Berteles, and today we're talking about pageantry as usual. And listen, I know you guys are gonna give me a hard time like, Luis, you keep on changing backgrounds every single video, but if you are in the loop, I am in Cuba having a little bit of a vacation, family time. Today we are on a resort, but pageant bloggers never rest. So here I am today ready to talk about Miss Universe Philippines 2025, about a topic that I thought would be a little bit relevant, which is of course, who should we send to Miss Universe 2025 in Thailand? A newbie or a veteran? Because when you think about it, we have really solid choices, really strong candidates in either one of those categories in this year's competition. And I think that is a decision that must be taken seriously, considering that the pageant will be held in Thailand. As usual, if you enjoyed this, go ahead and drop a like, comment, subscribe, and join the channel memberships if you would like to support the channel even further. You know, the first thing that I wanted to highlight, the pageant, the international competition for Miss Universe 2025 will be held in Thailand, a country that is not just a lot of fun and there's a lot of culture and is very rich in heritage, but also it's a very pageant loving country where people go hard for their queens. So whoever the Philippines decides to send, and by the way, this is something that applies to not just Miss Universe Philippines, but to any country out there currently going through their national selection process to send their delegates to Miss Universe. One thing is undeniable, we have really strong delegates on both sides of this argument, whether it is on the newbies. And listen, I don't want to get too specific on this video because this is simply an opinion video, but we have, for example, the girls of Baguio, we have the likes of Bohol, we have the girls from Cebu, we have the girls from Laguna, Isabela, just to name a few. Miss Universe Philippines has really been effective at attracting the fresh faces and the girls who are joining the nationals for the very first time. And you can really see the caliber in this year's competition. But at the same time, we have veterans who are making a comeback and who are loved and have presence. Their participation and their candidacy is being felt and appreciated by the fans. We can talk about Atiza Manalo, Winwin Marquez, Ileana Aduana. We have even the likes of Chela Falconer making a comeback to Miss Universe Philippines. How can we forget about Chelsea Fernandez? And you know, it's just a lot to digest, and at the end of the day, there is only one crown for the universe, which is of course the ultimate goal. So during this video, I'm gonna break down for you guys the advantages and the disadvantages both of crowning a newbie or a veteran, and I'll share my thoughts with you guys at the end of this video, my very own take on this question, but I also want to hear your own opinions in the comment section down below. So make sure that before you leave this video, let me know who are you rooting for in terms of newbie or veteran. Look, let's not sugarcoat this. Let's get right into it with the newbies. I feel like there are several advantages to crowning a newbie. Some of them are clear advantages that we cannot neglect. For example, the fresh perspective. I mean, whenever we have a newbie or a fresh face that joins the national competition and eventually wins, that means that this girl is ready to basically soak and take all the knowledge that is given to her, and for the very first time she will be so excited to go and represent the country, showcase the culture. So guaranteed you will have someone that will give their best in order to represent the country. Undeniably, there is also a little bit of a surprise factor because of course, I feel like most fans would be biased and they would root for girls that they already know and they have been supporting before, or at least that they have seen compete on a regional, municipal, or provincial level. But at the same time, they might still be a surprise for the national audience or even for the international audience if ever the girls gets to win the national competition. So that is indeed an advantage if the girl is able to bring the stage presence, the performance, and all of the things that are required to, of course, amaze the audience. I'm gonna go as far as mentioning this as well. I think that one of the advantages of having a newbie is the untapped potential. And by that, what I mean is that the organization, the trainers, and whoever is working with the candidate is able to kind of mold her to exactly what they want and exactly what they envisioned. And I mean, if you look through the past couple of years at Miss Universe Philippines, since they have the license for Miss Universe, we can argue about the fact that some girls seem to have received a lot of help in terms of how they were molded and how they prepared. And at the same time, we have girls who seem to be very much hands-on in terms of their narrative, their performance, the imagery that they wanted to use, and all of those things. So it goes both ways. But for example, we know that Miss Universe Philippines is very hands-on with the designs, is very hands-on with the walk and the training. If you opt for a newbie, those are things that they will be a little bit more in control, and that perhaps the contestant will be more open to it if they don't have yet that experience of competing at a higher level. Of course, relatability and authenticity is something that always resonates with the audiences and the general public and pageant fans especially. Who doesn't like a queen who speaks from the heart, who has like humble backgrounds, or that most of all can simply fall in love with? Usually those are the queens that we remember the most. You know, not all the time, but most of the time, queens without experience, they have a very humble aura, they don't have an ego, they don't have yet a fandom or a support system that is strong enough for them to feel untouchable. So these are usually the times that we get those queens that really steal our hearts and give us memorable moments. Now, let's talk about some of the disadvantages of crowning a newbie. And don't worry, we're gonna do the same process, advantages and disadvantages for the veterans later on the video, but hang with me, we're gonna get there. I have a couple of points that I would like to make for the newbies in terms of some of the disadvantages, the things that we need to remember and keep in mind in case we were sending a newbie. First of all is the lack of experience. I mean, earlier I praised them for the fact that we can mold them, we can train them, we can visualize what we want from them, and at the same time help them through it. But the lack of experience, especially at the level of competition of Miss Universe, can sometimes be a disadvantage, something that will take away from the experience and the overall enjoyment of the competition for the contestant. Some of the girls don't handle well the attention, the high pressure, the competition. It's undeniable that the expectation is off the roof. Okay, we have a blackout, but it's okay, this is Cuba. We're just gonna carry on. The light might come back while I'm filming this video. The lack of experience can really be a burden, especially if it takes a toll on her mental health, and I feel like that's a part that we don't talk about as much. It doesn't matter how prepared you are physically, if you've been hitting the gym, if you've been following your regime, if you have all of the looks, if you have the outfits. It doesn't matter if your mental health is not really up to par with what is required of you on the international competition. It can really be problematic. When you combine this with my next disadvantage, which is the short training time, it can really be a formula for disaster. Now, Miss Universe Philippines will probably crown their new queen around April, and I think that Miss Universe is scheduled to take place around November. If I'm not mistaken, you guys can correct me in the comment section down below. So arguably the queen will have sufficient time. Listen, I don't think that honestly this year this is a major concern, but not everyone learns at the same pace, same rhythm. So if ever they decided to go with a newbie, I think that they would have to make sure that this is someone that is able to learn and accomplish all of the things that need to be accomplished within the allowed time frame. So that's something just to keep in mind. Last but not least, on the newbies disadvantages, I would say that whoever it is the candidate representing the country needs to have stage presence, and she needs to be able to manage all of the performance risks. And this goes back to what I mentioned earlier. You know, if you're a newbie, sometimes there are things that you can only learn and master with practice, by being on stage, by being in front of people, by being criticized, by making mistakes and correcting those. And there are things that you just have to go through them. For example, how to master an international level catwalk, how to master the Q&A, how to manage your nerves and your stress while you are on stage, the styling and all of those things. So those are little points that both the candidates and the organization would have to keep in mind. Well, I guess the judges, since they are the ones picking the winner during the final night of the competition. Now, let's do the same thing for the veterans, because I know that we have some really high-profile veterans joining Miss Universe Philippines this year, and a lot of people, of course, rooting for them since, as I mentioned earlier, they are familiar, they have an emotional attachment to them, and all of those things. So, of course, on the advantages of having a veteran represent the Philippines at Miss Universe 2025, we have to acknowledge, of course, the experience and the readiness of these girls. Just a couple of examples this year: Winwin Marquez, Ileana Aduana, we have Atiza Manalo, Chelsea Fernandez. Name one of them who didn't come out with a killer headshot with a killer look for the press presentation. Even for some of the sponsor activities so far, they always bring their A game. And this is something that you cannot fake. It's something that you gain out of experience and just going through the process a couple of times in different levels of competition and just knowing what it works for you, what doesn't work because you already made mistakes, and now finally you can just stay away from those things. One of the advantages of a veteran is that they have usually a stronger fan base and an international recognition precisely because they have competed abroad or at a very high level of competition in the country. These are girls who are able to generate high buzz and just create media relevancy for both the organization and the country's profile for the international competition. This year we have literally an international title holder with Win Marquez. We have Ileana, who was a first runner-up at Miss Earth. We have Chelsea Fernandez, who did extremely well at the Miss Globe. You know, so those are the things. Atiza Manalo, of course, even at Cosmo, although she didn't make the top 5, arguably she had to be in the top 5. So it's that mix of the emotional attachment and the support from the fans, as well as the proven track record on a national and international stage that makes them an interesting choice as a title holder for the organization. These things, of course, will go hand in hand with the confidence and the strategy, you know? Just like I mentioned earlier about the experience, the confidence is something that you cannot fake. You just gain it over time with the experience. And as you go, you learn, and those are things that you incorporate, and it makes you stronger, more confident, and it really shows on stage. Same thing for the strategy. Again, I don't have to explain too much for you guys to understand what I mean by that. Go to any of these girls, the veterans, go to their Instagrams, their photo shoots, their pasabog, their outfits, their stylists, they have teams, photographers, everything is set in place because they have a clear vision, as this is not their first time in the rodeo. But of course, nothing and no one is perfect, so there are also a couple of disadvantages when it comes to crowning a veteran, and I'm gonna name a couple of them here. First of all, it's the overexposure. And listen, high profiles, they generate media buzz. Whenever Ileana said that she was going to join, Atisa said that she was going to join, Win Marquez was going to join, they were covered in national outlets. Newspapers, TV stations, radio stations talked about them. The social media went crazy. And this is simply because these people can generate clicks. The people are hungry for information about them, what they're going to do, is it true or not? But at the same time, overexposure can cause fatigue, meaning that people are tired of seeing you, of hearing you. Just imagine if a girl joins the same competition once, twice, thrice, 4 times, 5 times, eventually people will get tired of it because they have been hearing your story, they have been hearing what you want, they have been hearing about your ambitions and your goals, and eventually there comes a time when they will say, okay, well, let's move on to the next one. And I'm not criticizing anyone here for joining a couple of times. This is not the point. What I'm trying to say is that sometimes when people see you over and over and over again, they rightfully get fatigued. Who wouldn't? And of course, that can backfire as a veteran. On the other hand, we also have to say that the pressure and expectations from a newbie to a veteran is also completely different. The audience will never treat someone who is their first time and someone who is competing for a second or third time internationally the same way, because they feel like, oh, this girl is, seasoned. She should know what she's doing. She should know how to carry herself, how to present herself, how to sell herself, on social media and to the international audience. But perhaps they will be a little bit kinder to someone who has never gone through that experience before. So it's kind of a two-edged sword, because it can be an advantage for a newbie, but it can also be a disadvantage for a seasoned queen. There's also a little bit of an emotional attachment that sometimes can become a little bit heavy on the fan side, when you really want someone to do well internationally and perhaps they don't, or they don't get the placement that they deserve. A lot of people get affected, like actually affected. That is also kind of a disadvantage, not just for the contestant and organization, but also even to a certain extent to the fandom, right? The last disadvantage that I wanted to highlight when it comes to crowning a veteran is the stiffness. And I'm not talking about being stiff as in like physically, but I'm talking about being stiff in who they are. Usually these are girls who have already an identity, a name, a personal brand, people know them, and with all of that sometimes comes a certain ego. And what happens is that they are not so open to constructive criticism, or they're not open to criticism at all, or they think that they have it all figured out, or they think that because they competed in this and this and this and this pageant, it's going to be the same experience, when in reality every single pageant system is different and it has its own twists and turns and the things that you need to figure out. So I think that being flexible and being able to adapt is still something that a lot of girls could benefit from on the international and even national stages of the competition. So to all of my veterans out there who are making a comeback, if you're watching this video, just keep those things in mind. Same thing for the newbies. If you're watching this, just take notes. I feel like this is general advice that everyone can benefit from. Now, I told you guys that I will tell you my own take on this video, on this question about if I would send a newbie or a veteran for the international competition. And I will say that as of today, right, because we still have so much going on and so many competitions that are still yet to take place. But as of today, if I had to choose, I will go with a newbie. There's something about the newbies in this year's edition of Miss Universe Philippines that are just making me feel so excited about the competition. They are extremely beautiful. They are confident, they are great performers. Luckily, a lot of them did have a regional or local pageant that they had to compete in to be selected, which gives them already a prior experience. These are girls that, they have in a way been prepared for this moment, and at the same time, they have that hunger and that energy to go and get it. That doesn't mean that I'm not excited for my veterans. Also, if some of them win, I will be extremely happy, and of course, I've been very vocal about being supportive of a lot of them as well. Now it's your time to let me know, what do you guys think about this? I'll read you in the comment section. Don't forget to drop a like, comment, subscribe, and if you want to support the channel, hit the join button to become a channel member. See you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching now. Bye now.